Have you ever felt like something is missing, even when you have everything? The Buddha felt it too, and he left it all behind to seek the truth. Today, you'll discover the path he found, a journey toward real peace, toward a meaningful life. This isn't about religion. It's a practice, a way of seeing the world that can change how you feel, decide, and live. Stay with me, because this isn't empty philosophy. It's pure gold for the soul. If this speaks to you, hit like and subscribe. It helps more people discover this path. Now let's begin. The awakening of Siddhartha, when everything changed. More than 2,000 years ago, there was a prince who had everything. His name was Siddhartha. He was born in a palace surrounded by luxuries, servants, gardens, musicians, and feasts. His father, a powerful king, wanted to protect him from the world's pain, so he did something very curious. He ordered that his son never be shown anything sad, nothing ugly, nothing that could make him question his life. Only beauty, only joy. For years, Siddhartha lived in a golden bubble, but something inside him wasn't at peace. He felt an emptiness, a restlessness that he couldn't ignore. Why, if he had everything, wasn't he happy? That question began to grow within him like a seed. One day as an adult, he left the palace for the first time. What he saw changed his life forever. He saw an old man, bent over, who could barely walk. Then he saw a very sick person, trembling in pain. Later he came across a funeral procession, a lifeless body carried by others. And finally, he saw a man very different from all the others, someone who seemed neither rich nor poor, neither young nor old, but who had a peace in his face that Siddhartha had never seen. These four scenes shook him. Suddenly he understood something that no one had told him, that everyone will eventually grow old, get sick, and die. That life, no matter how much one tries to adorn it, also contains suffering. And that there are people who seek something beyond luxury or pleasure. They seek meaning. That night he couldn't sleep. He looked at his sleeping wife and son and wept silently. Not out of sadness, but out of decision. He knew he had to leave, that he had to find answers. He couldn't keep pretending everything was fine. He left his crown, his jewels, his sword. He walked alone toward the unknown, leaving behind the life that everyone would consider perfect. It wasn't easy. For years he wandered through forests, talked with sages, tried rituals, extreme fasting, sat in silence for days, but nothing gave him the answer he was looking for. Until, tired and thin, he sat under a tree and said, "I will not rise from here until I understand." And there, in that moment of total surrender, something happened that changed his story and that of the world. He didn't see magical lights or hear celestial voices. He simply deeply understood how suffering works and how to free oneself from it. He understood that it's not about escaping pain, but understanding it, that peace isn't outside but within, and that all of us, no matter who we are, can find that path. From then on, he began to teach, to walk from town to town, sharing what he had discovered, not to impose a religion, but to help others awaken just as he had. And so the path was born, not a physical route but a way of living, a path that anyone can travel simply by stopping to look with different eyes. This is just the beginning. Join me in the next chapter, where we'll understand what he discovered, what they call enlightenment today, but which you and I will translate into something simple, clear, and real. What is enlightenment really? When we hear the word enlightenment, many think of something mystical, as if it were a ray of light descending from heaven, a magical experience that only a few chosen ones can have. But it's not like that. We're not talking about floating or no longer having problems or becoming a perfect being. Enlightenment is much more human than it seems. Imagine that all your life you've worn dirty glasses. They're so stained that you don't even notice you're wearing them. You see the world blurry, distorted, and you think that's how everything is. Suddenly, someone cleans them, and what once seemed confusing now looks clear. That's enlightenment. Seeing clearly. Seeing life as it is, not as we believe it to be, without filters, without illusions. And most importantly, understanding why we suffer. Because yes, we all suffer, sometimes over big things like a loss, other times over small things like someone not answering our message. We live trapped between desire and rejection. We want what we like. We reject what bothers us. And that constant back and forth exhausts us, frustrates us, makes us anxious. Enlightenment is not about stopping feeling. It's about stopping being hooked. It's seeing that thoughts come and go, but we are not them, that emotions rise and fall, but they don't have to drag us along, that life changes all the time, but we can learn to flow with it. Those who are enlightened don't become invulnerable. They don't stop having problems, but their way of facing them changes completely. They no longer fight against what they cannot control. They no longer obsess over what they want. They live with more calm, more compassion, more presence, and, from that state, they influence others, not with speeches, but with their way of being in the world. It's like being asleep and suddenly opening your eyes. There are no fireworks. Just a truth so simple that it needs no explanation. Everything is fine just as it is, even when it hurts. And how do you get there? It's not a matter of luck, or praying more, or studying complicated books. You get there by walking step by step, living differently, feeling differently, thinking differently. There is a path, and in the next chapter, we're going to explore it thoroughly, because it's not a theory, it's something you can start practicing today. The Noble Path explained with real examples. Let's get straight to the point. How do you reach that clarity, that inner calm? What did the Buddha do to escape suffering? What he discovered wasn't a magic formula, but a way of living composed of 8 steps. Nothing weird, nothing complicated. They are 8 ways of seeing and acting in the world that, if practiced, change everything. And here I explain them to you with real examples, without difficult words or long detours. The first is to see clearly. This is called having a lucid gaze. It's realizing how things work. For example, understanding that everything changes, that sadness doesn't stay forever, but neither does joy. When you understand this, you stop fighting with what happens. It's not about resigning yourself, it's about accepting. It's looking at life without self-deception. The second is having a clean intention, not acting on impulse or anger or blind ambition. Imagine that before doing something you ask yourself, will this I'm about to do harm anyone? Am I doing it from love or from fear? If every person asked themselves that question before acting, this world would be different. Third, speaking with truth, and not just telling the truth, but speaking in a way that adds value. No gossip, pointless criticism, or divisive words. Think about that time when someone spoke to you with sincerity and compassion. It surely marked you. That's how powerful our voice can be. Fourth, acting well, not from duty, but from awareness. Helping, not harming, being kind. It's not about doing great works. Sometimes a simple gesture like looking someone in the eyes or holding the door for someone changes a person's day. Fifth, earning a living in an honest way. This is important. It doesn't help to meditate in the mornings and then work in something. That exploits or deceives. What you do for a living is also part of the path. Sixth, striving to improve without demanding too much of yourself or punishing yourself. It's putting effort into the process. Like when you learn something new. At first it's hard, but if you give it time, one day it comes naturally. The same happens with inner change. Seventh, being present, being where you are, eating and savoring, listening without looking at your phone, walking and feeling your steps. It sounds simple, but it's very powerful. Most of us live on autopilot. Living awake is an act of revolution. And eighth, training the mind to focus. It's not about leaving it blank. It's observing what happens inside without letting it drag you away. Sitting a while in silence and watching your thoughts pass like clouds. At first it's hard. Later, it becomes a refuge. These 8 steps are not a recipe to be followed to the letter. They are a guide, a map, and each person can apply them in their own way, at their own pace, with their own resources. The important thing is to walk. The beautiful thing about this path is that it doesn't demand that you believe in anything, only that you look, that you observe, that you live with more awareness. And when you start to do it, something inside you changes, not suddenly, but in a real way. Now that you know this map, I'm going to show you in the next chapter what happens when someone follows it, because there are stages, there are transformations, and each step takes you closer to what we call inner freedom. The 4 stages of enlightenment, from the common world to nirvana. Imagine you're in a river, the current is strong, and you're in the middle trying to stay afloat. That's life for most, struggling not to sink, trapped by emotions, expectations, pressures. But in this river there are people who little by little begin to swim toward the shore, not because they're special, but because they saw that there's another way. And in that journey, there are stages, changes that occur inside when one begins to awaken. The first stage is like putting one foot out of the water. It's when something in you clicks. You can no longer live as before. Perhaps you saw your life with clarity for the first time. Perhaps you understood that suffering has causes and that you're not condemned to repeat them. That understanding changes you. Suddenly, things that used to affect you so much no longer control you the same way. Criticism doesn't hurt you as before. Fear is still there, but it doesn't paralyze you. It's as if something deep inside you said, "Now I know which way I'm going." This stage is like turning on a light in a dark room. It doesn't free you completely, but it allows you to start moving with purpose. The second stage is more subtle, but powerful. It's when you start letting go of the drama, you don't react as strongly. Life's ups and downs continue, but you see them differently. Anxiety decreases, not because everything is fine outside, but because inside you've found a safe place. It's as if you stop needing so much. You stop seeking validation from others, running after things that promise happiness but don't deliver. You still live in the world, but with more lightness, as if a backpack you've always carried now weighs less. The third stage is stopping going backward. Many people experience moments of clarity, but then return to old habits. In this stage, there's no turning back, not because you force yourself, but because you simply no longer fit with that old way of living. Anger, the desire to control, judging others, all of that begins to fall away. You don't need it. You begin to live from a place of deep understanding, not from struggle. People notice it. Your presence changes, not because of what you say, but because of how you are. And the fourth stage is difficult to describe in words, not because it's magical, but because it's not something one can understand with the mind. It's a state where there's no more internal suffering. It doesn't mean things don't hurt you, but that pain no longer becomes suffering. You live in peace with what is. The fear of death dissolves because you understood that life is not measured by how long it lasts, but by how it's lived. You no longer need to be someone, to prove something, to get anywhere. You are, and that's enough. You're home. This path is not about escaping the world, but about returning to it with another perspective. It's not about becoming a saint or living in isolation. It's about becoming more human, more present, more free. People who advance through these stages don't feel superior or enlightened or special. In fact, they tend to be humble, quiet, profound. They live without making noise, but they leave a mark because their way of being is contagious, inspiring, supportive. And the most beautiful thing is that this path has no owner. It doesn't matter your history, your past, your situation. You don't need to give up your life or travel to India or become another person. You just need to start looking differently, to walk with awareness, to be more attentive to what happens inside you. That's already a huge step. In the next chapter, we're going to learn real stories of ordinary people who walked this path, because yes, there are many who are traveling it. People like you and me who decided to live awake. Stories of those who walked the path. There's nothing more powerful than hearing from someone who was where you are, felt what you feel, and found a way out. Because that's where the path stops being theory and becomes something real, something one can live. Let's get to know some stories, ordinary people without robes or temples who decided to search for something deeper and found in this path a new way of living. Let's start with Marta. She had a life that from the outside seemed perfect. House, family, stable job, but inside she was broken. One day, in the middle of an anxiety crisis, she sat alone in her kitchen and thought, I can't take it anymore. She knew nothing about meditation or Buddhism or enlightenment. She just knew she needed silence. She started with 10 minutes a day, 10 minutes to breathe and observe. At first it was uncomfortable, but something began to change. Not outside, but inside. Marta says she didn't become another person, but now she no longer lives running. She no longer needs to have everything under control. She learned to let go, and in that letting go she found a peace she had never felt. Then there's Diego. He was always very rational, skeptical, an engineer, very logical. He made fun of anything that sounded spiritual until a divorce shook him, leaving him alone with a lot of questions he couldn't solve with his mind. A friend told him about Buddha's path without calling it that, just as a way to live with more awareness. Diego began to read, to listen, to try. What changed him wasn't a revelation, but realizing that he could observe his emotions without letting them dominate him. He learned to stay with what hurts without fighting. Today he's still an engineer, but he also guides others from his experience. He doesn't talk strangely, he doesn't act wise, he just shares what worked for him. And then there's Rosa, an older retired woman who all her life felt she had no value. Her childhood was hard, her youth too, always at the service of others, always in the background. At 65, someone gave her a simple book about Buddha's path. She read it without expectations, but that book opened a door for her. She began to walk every morning in silence, paying attention to her breathing. She learned to forgive herself, to look at herself with tenderness, to understand that she doesn't need to do anything to be valuable. Today, Rosa radiates a calm that's contagious. She doesn't say much, but when she speaks, everyone listens. These people don't feel enlightened. They don't go around preaching or seeking disciples. They just live with a different inner quality. Not perfect, but freer. Each found their form, their rhythm, their practice. Some with meditation, others with reading, others simply by observing life with more awareness. That's the beautiful thing about this path. It adapts to you. It doesn't force you to be something you're not. It invites you to discover who you are, without all that you've been told, to look at your life with new eyes, to be where you are but in a more fulfilling way. And you, what part of your story is ready to change? Because if they could, you can too. You don't need to have everything resolved. You just need to be willing to look inward and take a step. In the next chapter, I'll show you how you can start that step today without complicating yourself, without theories, with concrete, simple, powerful things. How to start your own illuminated path today. There's a moment when everything changes. It's not when you reach the summit, but when you decide to start walking. That first step, though small, already places you in another direction. Many people feel that to begin a spiritual path, they need to go far away, have a lot of free time, or know a lot. And it's not like that. Starting is simpler than it seems. It only takes a decision, looking inward and acting with more awareness. The first step is silence. Every day, even if just for a few minutes, sit in a quiet place, turn off the noise, and simply breathe. You don't need to know how to meditate, just breathe and observe how the air enters and leaves. At first, the mind will run from one side to the other. That's okay. It's not about emptying your head, but about starting to notice everything that happens inside without judging it. Over time, that silence becomes a safe space, a place where you can rest even if everything outside is agitated. The second step is to observe your reactions. When something bothers you, before responding, ask yourself where this comes from. Am I reacting from fear, pride, insecurity? It's not about punishing yourself, but about understanding yourself. Each emotion, each thought is an opportunity to know yourself better. The more you know yourself, the freer you become. The third step is to live with intention. Do what you do with attention. If you're eating, eat. If you're walking, walk. If you're talking to someone, really listen. We live on autopilot, always running, always thinking about the next thing, but life happens now. Returning to the present is the beginning of a profound transformation. The fourth step is letting go of the need to be right, to control, to have everything go your way. The more you try to make everything fit your way, the more tension you accumulate. When you begin to accept things as they are with humility, something relaxes in you. Life won't always give you what you expect, but it always gives you what you need to grow. And the fifth step is practicing compassion, not only toward others, but also toward yourself. Being compassionate isn't being weak, it's being wise. It's understanding that we're all dealing with something, that no one has life figured out, that sometimes we just need a kind look to keep going. You don't need to do all of this at once, or do it perfectly. You just need to start. Because every small change in your day, in your way of thinking, acting, looking at others, is a seed. And these seeds, if you water them with patience, one day bloom. This path isn't a goal, it's a way of being in the world. A way of living with less weight and more clarity. It begins with you, with your everyday life. That's where the real transformation happens. In the next and final chapter, we're going to talk about something few mention, the traps of the path. Because yes, even on a path toward peace, obstacles disguised as progress can appear. What nobody tells you about the spiritual path. When someone starts a spiritual path, the first thing they usually think is that with time everything will be peace, serenity, gratitude, and smiles. And although there are indeed moments of great calm and clarity, the truth is that this path also has its traps. Traps that nobody usually talks about because they don't sound nice, but which form a real part of this journey. And knowing them is what can help you not give up, not get frustrated, and advance with your feet on the ground. One of the first traps is wanting to change all at once. Thinking that because you understood something profound, your life will transform in an instant. The reality is that true change is slow. Sometimes it hurts, sometimes you go backward, sometimes you forget everything you had learned and react as always, and that doesn't mean you're failing, it means you're human. This path isn't a perfect ladder upward. It's more like a spiral. Sometimes it seems like you're returning to the same place, but you see it from another level. Another trap is comparing yourself, seeing someone who meditates an hour a day or who seems to have everything under control, and thinking that you're far behind, that you're doing poorly. Each person has their rhythm, their history, their process. You're not here to imitate anyone. You're here to find yourself. What you see of others is just the surface. Nobody shows their dark moments, their falls, their doubts, but everyone has them. Even the people you admire, especially them. Then, there's the trap of the spiritual ego, and this is very subtle. It's when you begin to feel more conscious than others, more awake, wiser, more evolved. The ego doesn't disappear, it just changes disguise. Instead of seeking power or recognition for material things, it seeks it for the spiritual, and that can lead you to arrogance, judgment, isolation. Humility is what keeps the heart open, remembering that we are all, at some level, struggling with the same thing, that no one has the absolute truth, that even the most serene also stumbles. Another trap is fleeing from the difficult, thinking that because you're on a path of awareness, you should no longer feel anger, sadness, frustration. But these emotions don't disappear by magic. What changes is your relationship with them. You learn not to deny them, not to push them away, but to listen to them. They are part of you, they teach you. If you reject them, they only grow in the shadow. If you look at them with honesty, they transform. And there's perhaps the most common trap, believing that you have to do it all alone, that if you're on this path, no one can help you, that you have to figure it out on your own. But in reality, this is a journey that needs community, support, listening, talking with someone who understands you, sharing what you're experiencing, accompanying yourself with people who are also searching, not to follow anyone, but to walk together. Because in company, everything becomes lighter. What nobody tells you is also that although this path is challenging, every step is worth it. There isn't a point where you arrive and everything becomes perfect, but there are moments of great clarity where you understand things that used to make you suffer. There are moments of deep gratitude where nothing has changed outside, but you are at peace. There are days when you see someone and without realizing it, you give them a bit of light just with your presence, and that is priceless. The transformation isn't noticed in a diploma or a photo, it's noticed in how you speak, how you listen, how you respond when things don't go as expected. It's noticed in how you treat others when no one is watching, in how you talk to yourself when you make a mistake. That's what changes. That's what heals. So if at some point you feel you can't go on, that this isn't working, that you're not advancing, breathe. Return to the simple. Return to the present. Remember why you started. This path isn't straight or quick or easy, but it's real, and it takes you to a place where you can finally rest in yourself. And now that we're finishing this journey, remember that the video doesn't end here. You can continue walking, and this channel, this space, can be a compass whenever you need it. Thank you for staying until the end. If something you heard moved you, helped you, or inspired you, subscribe to the channel and tell me in the comments which part of this path resonated with you the most, or at what point on the path you feel you are. This path is yours, and it's just beginning. With gratitude, Daily Dharma.